Just a, just a second.
Okay.
How is it now? Hello.
Yes, sir. It is fine, sir.
Okay. So we have see in 5G we have massive MIMO. The number of antennas is getting increased either on the network side or on the UV side. So when we have a more number of antennas, how would the UE do a beam forming when we have a more number of beams? It could be a unidirectional beam or a bidirectional beam, like whatever the direction. How would our UE do a beam forming? So in LTE, we don't have such a scenario because the number of antennas LTE doesn't have a massive MIMO. So beam forming would be done either on the digital side, the pre-coding. I think the automotive pre-coding that we already know since we have it from the long back. So this is one of the research topic. We can do a pre-coding on the baseband side, or we can do a analog side on the antenna. Or there is another important research topic that is called the hybrid pre-coding, where the beam forming was done both on the analog or the digital. Because instead of doing it the antenna, because we have more number of antenna, we'll take an output of all antenna signals, then we do a beam forming. Even same would be done on the receiver side. So this is another new research topic, the beam forming for 5G NR. Then the cell reference signals. Reference signal is something you say that primary synchronization, secondary synchronization signals, where you can latch onto the network saying that in one radio frame at this particular slot, we always network sends a reference signal. And duplexing. This is also another very important research topic for 5G. In 4G, in 10 millisecond frame, in one slot, we could have either TDD or the FDD, the time division duplexing or the frequency division duplexing. I think we are all aware like what is the TDD or the FDD. FDD is something we do on a frequency, the orthogonal frequencies in time. We're doing it in same frequency at other time parts. But when it comes to new radio of the 5G new radio, like in one slot we have a dynamic TDD or FDD technique. In full duplex, like in one slot, both uplink and downlink, we can have TDD or FDD, but it's not the case in the 4G LTE. How this implementation we can do from the physical layer side? This is another research topic. Like these are the changes, like very like good amount of changes that come from the 4G LTE to the 5G and our physical layers, and these are equally very important topics for the research on the 5G physical layer, the signal processing techniques for the 5G physical layer. Whether we have an OFDM starting from the 4G LTE OFDM to the DFTS to OFDM or filter bank multi-carrier, are all these things how these were implemented. Filter bank multi-carrier and NOMA are not in the 3GPP release 16. At least I know that NOMA is not in the 3GPP release 16. It is in the 3GPP release 17. So these are the changes. We'll go on in detail about one by one. Okay, so far so good. Any questions? Okay, this is the example to calculate the FFT size of the OFDM. This is how the FFT size is calculated, and this is how the FFT implementation is done in the hardware. The input would be given by the software or the firmware to the hardware, and hardware would calculate the FFT based on the input data. That depends on the bandwidth, because the subcarrier spacing is fixed and it is as per the spec, and even the resource block is also as per the spec. Okay, now we talk about the physical layer techniques, the waveform, numerology, and how this frame structure look like to the 5G compared to the 4G LTE. So scalable numerology, that's what I was saying. The subcarrier spacing is not fixed like 4G LTE. It is changing, and even the bandwidth is not constant. Like bandwidth anyhow, in LTE also we have starting from 1.4 megahertz to the 20 megahertz, and in 5G NR with bandwidth we have from 30 megahertz to almost 50 megahertz to 400 megahertz. And the slot durations, I had given the calculation here how this number of subcarriers would change, and if increased subcarriers, how this radio frame slot timing or the number of symbols would change. I think we had a good understanding about this now. So then the inter-carrier spacing interference, the slot based versus the non-slot based scheduling. In LTE, the scheduling is always done on the slot, because one slot equal to seconds, so the scheduling always done on the slot base. But in 5G NR, we won't wait for 0.5 milliseconds. We need to do scheduling at any time, whether it could be 0.1 millisecond and 0.2 millisecond or in between that, because the round trip delay from network to the UE or UE to the network is less than 1 millisecond. If we wait for the whole slot, we can't have a very less round trip delay, and that in turn would lead to some failure of either voice call or the throughput data rate or anything. That's why in 5G the scheduling would be done either on the slot based or the non-slot based, and use cases for a mini slot, less than 0.5 millisecond scheduling for the dynamic TDD. Dynamic TDD, both in uplink and downlink, we have a simultaneous message transmission on the reception. That is what your full duplex channel is about, and these are the very good research topics for 5G. Actually, we can have enormous changes, and I didn't put the IEEE papers. If we want, I can send it. I have she is like a faculty member, the Professor Rajni Manu. She was my faculty member in Corporate Tech Engineering College. So we have all those IEEE papers. I think you will have these access as well. I can send out like each paper, and we can we already have a OFDM basic simulation, so we can read the basic paper, how this DFTS OFDM or the cyclic prefix OFDM, what are the changes compared from OFDM, the 4G LTE OFDM to 5G NR DFTS OFDM, and we can start simulating these results in the MATLAB. That would lead to a new research, like new understanding from CPU OFDM to DFTS OFDM. And we have a channel estimation and synchronization OFDM, but here the number of symbols or the time or the delay spread, that would change. So how we can do, how it will affect the system or the bit error rate. We can do these simulations as a research topic, or the filter for the filter bank multi-carrier. These are all like open, not open, like these are all like research topics as a faculty that we can do. Okay, so the waveform, the downlink. These are all like open, not open, like these are all like research topics as a faculty that we can do. Okay, so the waveform, the downlink is cyclic prefix OFDM, and uplink is the CPU OFDM plus we can use the CPU OFDM or the DFTS OFDM. DFTS OFDM is discrete Fourier transform spread OFDM. That's what I said. It will dynamically calculate the delay spread, and based on that, it will decide the CP. Like I didn't went to all the signal processing stuff that is done on the DFTS OFDM, but I had the IEEE paper. We can still discuss more if someone is interested after this meeting. CPU OFDM is targeted for high throughput scenarios. That's what in 4G we have a OFDM and SCFDM. SCFDM is single carrier, single user, where throughput doesn't matter. But if we have a more number of users, we need to have a more number of signals that consumes the high power, because the 5G is at higher frequencies. Higher frequencies means that we should have a high clock speeds in the hardware. So high clock speeds in the hardware would consume a more power. So power is always an important consideration. It's always an important, either we can do it from the software or the firmware or the hardware or the signal processing side or the whatever the messages that we transmit to the network or the UE. Power is always an important thing. That's why the techniques that we do always the power, we should keep power in our mind. And the multiple access, we have an orthogonal multiple access and the non-orthogonal multiple access. Even I was not so much good enough the NOMA technique yet. This is in the 3GPP release 17, and the 5G smartphones that are going to release that were released by OnePlus or that are going to release by the other smartphone vendors would have 3GPP release 16 standard only, not more than that, at least by 22. I was not aware that how this COVID-19 pandemic would impacted the smartphone launches. That's why the 3GPP release 16. Like what are the smartphone which supports the 5G, which we purchase in 2020 would support the 3GPP release 16 at least, because the 3GPP release 15 and release 16 standards was finalized by the December 2017 or early months of the 2018. Okay, the bandwidth, the maximum CC bandwidth in 5G was 400 megahertz. So if you do the same calculation that I mentioned here, because 400 megahertz would have a 120 kilohertz subcarrier. So if we do the same calculation, that would lead to the 400 megahertz would lead to a number of subcarriers, 3,300 subcarriers. See, we have a 1,200 subcarriers in LTE as a max at 20 kilohertz bandwidth. It's a max bandwidth. In 5G, 400 megahertz bandwidth itself, we have a 3,300 in subcarriers. The nearest 2 power number would be 4096, because it's very easy to compute the 2 power FFTs by the hardware rather than doing the non-2 power FFT. Because like you guys would have know that how these algorithms were there are so many algorithms that would reduce the computations by FFT. That's why we always use the 2 power FFTs to have a very less number of complications in the hardware side. So 3300 subcarriers at a 5G max bandwidth of this bandwidth also is as per release 15. I don't know whether release 16 or release 17 still we have increased bandwidth. This I am talking about somewhere in sub 6 gigahertz bandwidth. And it needs a 4096 FFT, which is like highly complex. I think in our academia curriculum also, when we are dealing about this DFT or the algorithms, we can see the computation when we were computing the 4096, how many computations we need. So these many computations should be done by the hardware here. It's not about the MATLAB simulation. This is what I was mentioning. Till 120 kilohertz, it's somewhere in the sub 6 gigahertz span, and more than that, subcarrier spacing. So now we were here actually. Now in the smartphones, we are at the 120 kilohertz subcarrier spacing in 3GPP release 15 or 16. So this 240 and 280 still not specified in the release 15 standard, 3GPP standard. Okay, if this just think about it, 120 kilohertz subcarrier spacing. We have a bandwidth of 400 megahertz that needs the 4096 FFT in the hardware. But if we go to 480 kilohertz, it's almost like the 4 times the bandwidth. That in turn would lead to 4 times, even not 4, it's more than that FFT, because we need to do 2 power size FFT. That would lead to so much FFT in the hardware. So this is one of the research topic. How can we do a FFT computations? How can we reduce the FFT computations for higher data lengths? This is like what can we do? We can look at the papers and start simulating it. Okay, I was mentioning the physical layer protocol stack. The synchronization happens, or the scheduling happens in the slot or the mini slot or the frame base. So in one radio frame we have a 10 millisecond. One radio frame is a 10 millisecond time, and in that one frame is 1 second, and one slot is the 0.5 millisecond. In one slot we have a 6 OFDM symbols. OFDM symbol will have, if taking one OFDM symbols means it is n subcarriers, and each subcarrier will have either the QPSK or QA modulated symbol. I think you understood. One OFDM symbol is not one QPSK symbol. One OFDM symbol is equal to n subcarriers, and each subcarrier we have a one QPSK, one QAM. That's how it increases the data throughput. Okay, and this part is our cyclic prefix. Okay, so one radio in 0.5 millisecond. Let's see in how many subcarriers we have in the frequency domain. So clear, and this is how the frame, subframe, or the slot or mini slot based system with increase in the subcarrier spacing. How the number of symbols the number of symbols would get increased. The OFDM symbols would get increased. How can we do a processing of this? Previously, when we were doing the processing on 14 OFDM symbols, now we need to do a processing on almost like 1 millisecond to 125, 6 times more symbols. Because in 5G, the subcarrier spacing is dynamic. Okay, and I was mentioning the simultaneous downlink and uplink reception to have a very round trip delays and the fast commutation. Then the 5G NR 4G LTE coexistence, and this has a restrictions actually. We should do on one specified band because of the interference and all those things. I would not go in depth of this. This is actually another separate topic. The 5G NR 4G LTE coexistence. The subcarrier spacing to the number of OFDM symbols. I think we did this calculation for one example, and you can see that for all these table. I did this example here like that. We can do the calculation for all this, like how the number of symbols would get increased. See how we'll use this. This is nothing but our data. This is our bits. If it is a pilot data, if it is a pilot data, then we use it for the synchronization or the channel estimation. Or if it is sometimes it's data that we need to decode. So the number of symbols gets increased means number of bits would get increased. Number of bits increase, our data rate of the system would get increased. For example, if we have a one OFDM symbol of, for example, like 1024 subcarriers, if we modulate with QPSK, one symbol will have how many bits? Like 2 bits. So 1024 OFDM symbols. One OFDM symbol is equal to 1024 QPSK symbols. Each symbol is modulated onto each subcarrier. Then that will have a 2048 Mbps of data rate. If we have a more number of symbols, our data rate in turn increases. So the next thing is 5G was how much time we have. So we are going as far with time. Hello.
Yeah, sir.
So how much time we are going as far with time. So like how much time we have? That's what I was asking. Hello. Hello. Okay.
Please.
All right. So, next technique is like initial access on the beam management. So, these things, the sort of the frame, everything that we discuss in is a physical layer. Once this thing is set up, like once these are known to our smartphone, the next thing is the beamforming. Beamforming is to attach onto the 5G network. So, beamforming is very much essential in 5G networks because of the massive MIMO, which we don't have in the 4G LTE networks. So there are three types of beamformings. The one is the digital beamforming, the analog beamforming, but in 5G the important beamforming is the hybrid beamforming. Why this hybrid beamforming is very important is that we have an increased number of antennas. We can't do a beamforming or the signal processing either in the analog side or in the baseband side because the number of antennas are more. So instead of doing that, the beamforming is done once by combining all the antenna output signals start at the output of the analog system. So if I mention analog system, analog is something where, for example, I'll just tell you what is analog and what is baseband in a cellular modem or any modulator, like any modem. So in the receiver side, we are just taking an example in the receiver side. We have a signal, time domain signal that's coming out to the air. Even it comes from the electromagnetic waves, all those things you guys are aware of it. So we got that signal. First we have this for noise section. We have one amplifier. Then we have like the low noise amplifier. Then we have this IF, the super heterodyne receiver is the analog part, the IF amplifier and all those things. In 5G, each and every component is highly challenging. It's not a low noise amplifier that we had in the analog modulation or which we used for the 4G LTE because of the higher frequencies. It's a 6 gigahertz signal. It's not the carrier is 6 gigahertz. Okay, so in analog side, we have low noise amplifier or the power amplifier or the IF amplifier or the band pass filter. After that, we have a desired analog signal now because that would be given to the analog to digital converter. So what analog to digital converter would do? The ADC would do a sampling. Here, sampling is not an IQ sampling, remember. This is another challenging. That's why now we see a papers in signal processing for higher dimensional samplings. If someone want, I can send you the paper also. The higher dimension sampling in the sense that frequency is very high. So, and the data is also big data. So, we have an analog signal that would send to the ADC. In the ADCs, the sampling would be done 100 times the Nyquist rate to suppress the noise. Okay, it's not an Nyquist rate sampling. That's why the ADCs are also very challenging to design because the sampling rates are very, very high. We can't do Nyquist sampling. Nyquist sampling would not suppress the noise much. Okay, so in ADCs, the sampling was done by the 100 times the Nyquist rate to suppress the noise. So out of that, after sampling, we have now the discrete samples. We have a more number of samples because the Nyquist rate is because the sampling rate is more. The sampling is more, the time will get reduced. Now we have a number of samples. These samples we should do quantization, then convert into the bits. So now in our digital front end, the analog is over. The low noise amplifier, we got a signal, then low noise amplifier, power amplifier, the IF, then the ADC. We are getting the bits out of it now after quantization. So now the digital front end comes into the picture. So digital front end would have the channel estimation, synchronization techniques, or the frequency offset estimation, which is very, very important when we are missing the orthogonality between the subcarriers. Then we have a decoding, either the turbo or the LDPC or the polar decoding. This is how the modem baseband or the analog looks like. Now we have a hybrid beamforming. Hybrid beamforming would have a more number of antennas. We can't doing the signal processing or the computation with each and every antenna or the beamforming or the getting the directional waves would be very difficult. So in hybrid in 5G, combine all those signals and we have a component where we'll have both analog and the baseband, and you do a beamforming in that component. Actually, I forget to put the diagram, but just like I hope we got the analog or digital implementation. Then we have a beam sweeping. So how a beam sweeping 4G LTE, we have a RACH. Now we have this thing. First we have a synchronization signals from the network. Network will transmit the system information. System information will have the network bandwidth information. So based on that we have all these calculations. Then once we feel that this is suitable for me, then my UAV will send a RACH to the network. If network thinks that this guy is good to resist onto my network, they will send a system information and the response. Once that is done, at this point I can say that my smartphone is latched onto the network. So after that, we have a data control. Like, then we can use all our if we are using YouTube or all those things, we have the data application for. Or if we are using voice call, we have a voice application. This is how the registration happens in 5G. In 4G, this is hatch. We don't have this beam sweeping in 4G because we don't have a massive MIMO. So this is how it happens in the uplink or the downlink. TX means transmitter and RX means receiver. The system information blocks, everything would done on the slot base, and slot in turn will have a OFDM symbols. And these are just I had given the how these antenna arrays would look like. Just it's not like a fix. It's just a copy diagram from some textbook or some PPT. So it depends on the implementation, how these modems are getting implemented, and the R&D results that comes out of it. Then we have this uplink and downlink channels, channel coding. As I mentioned, for the polar and the LDPC codes, polar for the control and LDPC for the data. See, control in the sense that I told you, you guys can read, there are channels in the 3GPP spec. When that comes into the protocol stack, not in the signal processing. Those things we take it in the physical layers and do a signal processing. Then the MIMO. Okay. I think if time is over, I can stop. If we have still 10-15 minutes more time, I can still go on to the network architecture. These are the changes on the 5G physical layer. Okay. Can I go ahead, or if I have 10-15 minutes of time?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. So 5G architecture, this is more of a network side architecture. So this was I mentioned in my initial slide, saying from the 5G moves from a base station centric network to a device centric network. In 4G it's a single base station, but in 5G it's not a single base station. We'll have a more number of connecting devices connecting different networks. User is no longer the final destination. Your smartphone is not only the application for 5G. We should have an IoT application. We will have an IoT application. We have a V2X, the vehicle-to-vehicle communication, the autonomous driving, the augmented reality. All these, when we are deploying the 5G network, we should keep all these things in the mind to serve all these applications. So when we have all these things, what plays a role in various tasks? Storage, relaying, the content delivery, and the computation. Computation because of the more number of high amount of data. Even the storage are relaying also same. Now the data is very high. This is the LTE base stations. We have now more number of base stations to the mobile switching center. Later we have a one base station. Now we have a more number of base stations. And given that we have the 6 gigahertz of the spectrum, the signal would attenuate more. Then we should have a dense networks. It's not about the one base station which serves almost several kilometers. Now we should have a dense networks because of the higher frequency attenuation. Then we have the user cooperation is nothing but the cognitive radio. Then we have 5G radio network design where we need to serve the high. For example, if we are in a cricket stadium, for example, I think the COVID pandemic, we don't know when we go to a stadium. We have a cricket stadium in a dense group. How would we serve the data rate applications? Because you see that our LTE network hardly supports 1,000 users. 1,000 RS users for higher throughputs, but in the dense situations, how would we have these things actually? Okay, this is another challenge. The mmWave base stations would get increased because see, we have one master base station, more number of mmWave base stations. This is legacy network base station means the LTE base stations. Okay. So in one LTE base station, this is just a diagram. It doesn't mean that it's a fixed 6 mmWave base stations. The number is not fixed. It depends on how the users and as well as the signal strength and the frequency that we are operating. It just gives a picture. So one LTE base station with users, we should have more number of mmWave base stations. That's what I mentioned. The mmWave networks can be integrated with 4G cellular network with this standalone mode of operations. Okay. Then we have a standalone. In standalone, I mentioned right. Non-standalone, we have a 4G and 5G networks that would operating like 4G as a master and 5G as a slave. In standalone, it is independent. It is completely independent. We should have a directional beamforming. If we are on the 4G network, that can tell us how whether 5G is supported or not, or we can switch the data onto the 5G network. This is exclusively for 5G mmWave, the standalone. Because in 3GPP, the first phase of implementation, since it would take the more time, this 3GPP standard finalized NSA first, then the SA. Release 15 has both SA and NSA. Directional interfaces that would come with the antenna arrays. The directional interfaces which we discussed just now, the OFDM, the CDMA to GMSK, GMSK to WCDMA, again CDMA is frequency reuse. Then we have OFDM. Now we have CP OFDM, FBMC or DFDS OFDM. Then you have beamforming. Just now we discussed unidirectional antennas. Just these are these that I discussed is from UV side, the smartphone side. This I am discussing from the network side. I think the communication, the protocols should be same on the both sides actually. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Again, like what are the because I didn't go in depth onto like what is the signal processing that is done in the full duplex radio, the massive MIMO, filter bank multicarrier, the NOMA. These are like the same thing that we discussed, the full duplex radio technology, where we should do both uplink and downlink transmission simultaneously. In filter bank multicarrier, we will suppress the noise by having a sharp filters after like the FF before the or after the FFT or IFTT in the TX or the RX side. Then the non-orthogonal multiple access or the massive MIMO. These are like open area research topics now for 5G. We can just take one paper either on it on the FTS OFDM or the massive MIMO or the full duplex radio or the NOMA. We can read what are the like whether these increased antennas or this full duplex radio technologies, the MM, what are the channel estimation, how channel estimation we can do. Like all these things are the open for 5G. I can send out the papers on the 5G channel estimation or the hybrid deep decoding if someone is interested after this talk. Okay. Thanks. We can take a question or we'll move ahead for another 10-15 minutes. Hello.
You can go ahead, sir. Another 10 minutes, you can go ahead.
Okay. That's what in 5G mmWave wireless technologies we're discussing. We have 30 GHz to 300 GHz spectrum, this higher spectrum. So this higher spectrum in the sense it means that we have an deployment for the smaller geographic areas to higher throughputs because of the attenuation that comes because of the higher frequencies. Higher propagation losses because of mmWave frequencies at gigahertz, then weak diffraction abilities, then the penetration losses. In regular, the penetration losses in wireless communications are very high, even the probability of outage. So, to reduce these losses, we should increase our transmit power. So, increasing transmit power needs the higher order modulations. So that takes the power out of the hardware. So it is very, very power consuming or the difficult. So how can we have a techniques that reduces the penetration losses at the higher frequencies? Large as the massive MIMO, where we should have this beamforming techniques to have a directional beamforming. This is another the pre-coding, the hybrid pre-coding. From the hardware side, I mentioned while discussing about the analog part of the modem that the low noise amplifier are the power amplifiers. Now we are at the gigahertz frequencies. Even this sampling we should do at the higher, like 100 times the sampling, the Nyquist rate. So this non-linear distortion power amplifiers is another this is in hardware. This is inbuilt hardware. So the amplifiers, how these are the challenges to design these with 5G mmWave. This is actually analog part. The hardware power amplifiers. These are the analog part. Then the large antenna arrays means the large number of RF chains. At each output we have an RF chain. So if we have a 1024 by 1024 antennas, we will have a 1024 by 1024 RF chains for one thing. So how can we do processing? So that's why instead of doing that, the hybrid pre-coding would be done using signal processing. Combine all these chains, output of all these chains to one signal and do a pre-coding. Then a massive MIMO. There's a large number of antennas. This is how then the this spatial multiplexing. The massive the beamforming is nothing but a spatial mask filter. But now we should do it for the higher number of higher order of antennas. Then we need to see that how it would impact the bit error rate of the system. Channel estimation. I mentioned this because the TDD, the simultaneous transmission in the full duplex technology, how this massive MIMO or because all these are integrated, we can't have this massive MIMO or the full duplex or the scalable numerology. These are in one system. In physical layer, these are not independent. These are one system. So all this, including we should see the challenges of this channel estimation techniques. We have seen very good number of papers in 4G OFDM channel estimation technique, and we can see that we can read the papers and see that how we can look at the 4G LTE to compare it to 5G NR. Duplex, the TDD and FDD. FDD in the orthogonal frequency bands, and TDD we do a orthogonal time slots. But in 5G, we should do a simultaneous transmission and reception at the same band at the same time. this would increase the spectrum efficiency for 5G mobile wireless. Since we are doing the same frequency and different time slots at the same time, it will reduce our time. The frequency duplex versus the frequency division duplexing. The TDD, duplexing delay, the uplink and downlink transmission in different time slots, which results in the duplexing delay. But in frequency duplex, we should do that in full duplex. FDR is full duplex, so there should not be any delay. So we need not have a God interval because we are doing both at the same time. These are not orthogonal. Any of the self interference. This is again when we are doing it the same communication at the same time, both in uplink and downlink, we will have this self interference. The FBMC, this is another physical layer technique. Okay, this what is improved is that we have a filters. So OFDM would have an higher number of FFTs and OFDs. So in FBMC, we have the noise getting suppressed with the filter after IFFT or the FFT. This is like we can like I'm not giving the in-depth signal processing that is done in using the FEMC or the NOMA, all these things. It's just going. These are the like open topics. And anyhow, we discussed about this 5G physical layer. In that CPU FDM, and like in every TX or RX, we'll have an FBMC after this IFFT or FFT. FPMC will have the sharp filters. Even design of the sharp filters is not in like easy thing. Okay, I'll stop here.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
sir, would you like to answer some queries, sir?
No problem.
Okay. Sir, one question is like this. Why TDD is preferred in 5G?
TDD is preferred in 5G because see, in 5G, I mentioned that the round trip delay should be very less. It's somewhere around 1 millisecond. In LTE, it is 10 milliseconds. TDD is there in the 4G LTE also. Okay, TDD is not new for 5G. We have TDD FDD, TDD bands in 4G or FDD bands in 4G also. Because TDD is preferred. If we have a one frequency, we can do uplink and downlink in the same time to reduce this latency. I mentioned right, it's ultra low latency communication. So in the same frequency, in the same time, we can do both uplink and downlink transmission in 5G. Okay. In FTD we can't do that, right? Because FTD frequencies are different, right? In TDD, with same frequency, we can do both uplink and downlink transmission. So that we can reduce the time delay. But we have a self-interference between the two time slots. That we should take in our signal processing. Okay? Is that answers your question?
I hope so, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, another question. Give me a minute, sir.
No problem.
I'm going through the questions. Yeah. Why should we give 10% of bandwidth for God band?
Okay. This is in the 20 megahertz. We are giving 10% to God band, right? So we need to get the reference signals, or we need to do a synchronization, right? We can't see when I am on LTE network. When I'm on LTE network, if I attach it to the network, I can't sit quiet. I should do a cell measurement. I should do a measurement in between every time. I should get the reference signal from the network to just say that I'm still with network. See, if I register onto the network and say that it's okay, it doesn't good because that means we can see a fake signal in our mobile phone. Okay. That is why we will have a God band. In that God band, we will send a pilot carrier just to say that channel is good, synchronization is good, and the cell is have a good signal. Just to measure those things, we'll send a one carrier. I think it is 1 for 6 OFDM symbols or 7 OFDM symbols. I didn't remember the exact number of symbols. That's how we do that. To do the channel estimation to make sure that channel is good, because wireless channel is not fixed, right? It is very dynamic. The wireless channel can cause a destructive interference at any point of. It's not a dedicated digital channel, right? It's a wireless channel. Wireless channel can cause destructive interference, and it can also cause the constructive interference. But the destructive interference because is of more chances that would cause the problems. That is why for every one subcarrier after 6 or 7, one sub every time we'll send it in the guard band. We'll send it. The network would send reference signal, or we'll just send a signal to estimate the channel to make sure the channel is good enough, and we have a very good synchronization. If the synchronization is not good, we'll lose a frames. If we are losing a frame, means we'll lose a data. Okay, that is why we'll have a guard band in this 20 megahertz bandwidth. I hope this answers the question.
Yes, sir. Sir, another question. Can you give any practical example of hybrid beamforming?
5G, this is massive MIMO. Massive MIMO is a practical example. Hybrid beamforming. I think I did put the picture. If I would have put the picture, it would have given a very good idea. The hybrid beamforming. See, we have an analog front end. For example, we are talking about the receiver. We have a continuous time domain signal. We have an analog. We have analog signal. Then we have a low noise amplifier and the power amplifier. Then we have a band pass filter. Then we have antennas. In massive MIMO, the antennas are the analog part, right? It's not a discrete part. Antenna is always an analog part. It's RF front end.
అయిపోయిందా